The fight against corruption is in the mouths and lips of all political stakeholders across the African continent and those vying in for position within the world at large. In fact, it is always the top priority of any person who is vying in to become the commander-in-chief of a nation, and in Africa in particular. The fight against corruption is succeeding in the East African community, but in the West and Central Africa, the fight is yet to take a center stage, and results and dividends are yet to be seen as far as the fight against corruption is concerned. In Nigeria, our next door neighbor, we share the common denomination, the lowest common multiple, which is corruption. The rate of corruption in Nigeria and in Cameroon is very high. President Muhammadu Buhari campaigned in 2015 under the banner of stamping out corruption, in fact reducing it to the barest minimum in such a way that his nation can reap the dividends of the resources that God has blessed them within their national territory. However, he is wrapping up with his mandate, which will come to an end in February 2023, which will usher in a new candidate because there will be a presidential election. His mandate this time around is non-renewable. As he wraps up with the mandate, the rate of corruption is still very much high. In fact, higher than when he took over office, despite creating the the EFCC, which is the Economic Crime Commission to fight against corruption. With this in mind, in the next door neighbor, which is Cameroon, that we happens to be, the rate of corruption is still very high, despite the fact that Cameroon's president, Paul Biya, has made it clear that his government and administration will not tolerate any form of corrupt practices across the country. President Biya, when he took over power 6 November 1982, right up till date as he clocked 40 years, that will be next week Sunday, which will make him 40 years since he ascended to power as commander-in-chief of the nation. It has been clear from day one that corruption is going to be fought with fortitude, and he's going to stamp it out. That is why, after the continuous re-election of President Biya in March 11, 2006, President Biya decided to create the National Anti-Corruption Commission, best known in French as CONAC, with high-sounding members who were appointed by the head of state. In fact, these members have high reputation when it comes to upholding dignity, respecting the rule of law, and promoting excellence. The members of the Cameroon Anti-Corruption Commission cannot be undermined. Their integrity is intact, and that is why Cameroonians trust them to fight against corruption. And when they were appointed, many Cameroonians applauded the head of state commander-in-chief, and even when members are being appointed to the commission, many are those who have high reputation, whose dignity speaks volume, and whose capability to fight against corruption speaks volume. But however, it seems as they are on a safari trip in the fight against corruption. Some have described the idea of creating a National Anti-Corruption Commission as a good idea turned upside down because the rate of corruption is still high. One would have thought that with the creation of this National Anti-Corruption Commission, the rate of corruption will decrease from the different checkpoints across the nation, from the different police stations, from the different offices across the nation, which is common. In fact, it is very common to see in Cameroon where a Cameroonian will bribe another Cameroonian to go and show him where to pay the actual bribe. We are co-authors of this. We are co-authors to these incidents, as sometimes we are the ones promoting corruption, begging authorities to receive money when we are ineligible to be granted a service. We will tell them, Master, take this small thing. No be na we. With all this in mind, we sometimes pushes these people to receive bribe, and at the end, we claim that they are highly corrupt. Take, for instance, drivers are supposed to have their insurance, categories, and visit technique ready, but they don't do this because they know that when they get to the different checkpoints, they will have to give money and pass by and end up not paying their fair share of tax as they ought to be. Who is to be blamed when this is put on the table? Is it the person who collected or the person promoting it? We are co-authors to corruption. When it comes to the national entrance to examination, we sometimes ask those authorities that be to collect millions of CFA to put the names of our sons and daughters on it. And we sometimes tell them that you are not the first and you will not be the last. That receive your own and go, and yet the nation is unable to meet up with its fair share of development because people don't pay their fair share. Who is supposed to be responsible within the increase of corruption in Cameroon? Is it the executive who are supposed to put in place measures to effectively accompany CONAC to carry out its activities, or is it CONAC who is not doing the job to fight against corruption extensively in Cameroon? This is House of Commons with me, Tah Mai Javis. You are welcome back. If you are just joining us, you're watching House of Commons. We begin the program by introducing to you our guests with whom we are going to discuss on a 1 hour 30 minutes program, House of Commons. Today we are looking at fighting corruption in Cameroon. Who is responsible for the situation that we find ourselves in terms of the high rate of corruption in Cameroon? Is it CONAC who is to be blamed? Is it CONAC, that is the National Anti-Corruption Commission? Or is it the executives who are supposed to put in place measures to accompany CONAC to fight against corruption? Or is it we, the people, who sometimes are co-authors to this? Joining us to discuss on this, we have Nsah, who is in Turkey. Nsah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Javis, for having me, and hello to the panelists. So I just want to introduce the topic from my own point. I think this topic is a very good topic, and it's very fundamental at this point, because I think corruption, as we know, is a huge hindrance to the development of any society.
It's like you have muted your video.
I don't know if
your video.
I don't know if you can hear me.
I'm getting you loud and clear, but your video is not off. I don't know what's happening. Maybe you are following two devices on the same computer or the same.
So.
Yes, I can get you.
Maybe you could. Okay. So I was saying that this topic of corruption is very fundamental to the development of any society. I mean, the tools that are needed to fight corruption are the tools that have to be put in place. That is, it has to be from two sides, okay, from the government and from the people themselves.
Okay.
So
we'll be coming back to you on the topic itself. Please try to see whether you can activate your video, because we are just seeing, but we are getting your audio clearly and we are happy you are getting us, but this time we can't see your video on screen. Also here in the studio we have Professor Nsah, who is also a man of integrity, who have been praying hard that we should fight against corruption in Cameroon, and we should leave Cameroon in a way that the posterity will not judge us as to the things we failed to do, but rather will applaud us as to the things we did for the betterment of the nation, and that people will come and go. Cameroon will remain Cameroon. And what are we building, and which future are we setting for our children? Professor Nsah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Javis, for inviting me. I want to also thank the dear listeners. They're all participants to this program today. The topic is very interesting, and it has something to do with the political and also the institutional process and outcomes that can put this our country back to the development rail again. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Nsah. Yeah, also in the studio we have Mr. Vitalis, who is also someone very vocal as far as corruption is concerned. He is a member of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement. Mr. Vitalis, thanks for joining us here, Angelica.
Yes, good morning, my panelists. Good morning to all the televiewers. This is a good topic that we are going to dwell on. It is something that concerns all of us, and it has been a bothering factor to all of us. I think we are going to educate the public on what is really happening in Cameroon these days as far as corruption is concerned.
Thank you very much. Also here in the studio we have Nick Anu, who is also a member of the civil society, those who have been fighting very hard to make sure that we build a nation of equality, justice, fairness, and accountability, regardless of our ethnic diversity. Nick Anu, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Tah Mai Javis. Thanks also for having me on the panel today, and good morning to our fellow followers, our fellow listeners watching us across the globe. It is our duty every day to contribute to nation building and to advocate for a fair and a fairer society for everyone. Thank you for having me once more.
I'll begin with you, Anya, who is in Turkey. I'm sure that you guys are having a similar situation when it comes to corruption. But let's zoom in to Cameroon. When the president took over, he vowed to fight against corruption. In 2013, during his end-of-year speech, he asked a question that why is there so much administrative bottleneck, and that why is it that Cameroonians, those within his administration, are finding it difficult to live to expectation. That was in 2013. And he has always made it clear that corruption need to be fought with a greater strength, because it is going to hamper development if care is not taken. So far, what can you make of the balance sheet of fighting corruption in Cameroon?
For the question, I think since then, I think we've seen that we have to sort of differentiate between what politicians are saying and what is actually happening on the ground. So for the past more than a decade, since the so-called Operation Sparrowhawk and the CONAC, we've seen scenarios where some of this CONAC has charged ministers to court, and some of them have been, the charges have been ordered by maybe the presidency or someone to be dropped. So it seems to me that the case is the case of corruption seems to be some sort of a tool that is being used to sort of fight political opponents, or it is not actually being used for what it's supposed to be used for. So we see that you look at Cameroon itself. 1989, 1990, I suppose 98, and 1999, Cameroon was the most corrupt country in the world. Think about that. You have to think about the level at which you have to be corrupt to be. That's according to Transparency International, by the way. Think at the level at which you have to be corrupt for you to be the most corrupt country in the world. We've been more than 2 decades later on. Cameroon is around 144 out of 180. I suppose 144 in terms of corruption. So we can say maybe some slight progress have been made, but the reality on the ground, as you said during your monologue, it's such a case that it is being perpetuated from the top and from the bottom. And the constitution around corruption doesn't even help the case, because under the law in Cameroon, if there is a case of corruption, the corruptor and the corrupted are charged equally, without any consideration for the power dynamic that is always involved in this thing. There is the authority dynamic, where it is either an official, a government official who is an authority, either soliciting bribe from a civilian. And so if that power dynamic is not considered and both of them are charged, the corruptor and the corrupted are charged equally on the same pedestal, it wouldn't help people to bring in cases of corruption, to whistleblow on cases of corruption. So these are things that have to be looked at in terms of charging people who changing the law around who is to be charged and who is to be blamed. So that's with regards to charging all of that. I mean, James, looking at the issues around pushing for fighting against corruption, it is such a case that it is a system that has to be put in place to fight corruption. CONAC, yes, CONAC has been put in place, but you know, CONAC goes here and there, and they're looking for what we would call those who corrupt, those at the bottom of the hierarchy. If you want to fight corruption, the corruption has to start from the top. Those who are embezzling money at the top have to be charged by CONAC, and in such a way that CONAC has to be fully independent. We know that CONAC is not independent. We remember a minister of, I think, secondary education was charged, and the president from abroad, you know, I think the minister was arrested, and the president called for his release by CONAC. It shows that CONAC doesn't have any independence to run on its own. And, you know, without that independence, there will always be political intrusion into the work. And so it wouldn't be able to work effectively. So that is the case of CONAC. So it's an issue where CONAC is involved, the executive branch is involved, and they have to look at the case of corruption. If they themselves can begin to put in the necessary institutions, because I don't want to be in a case where it's just a matter of, you know, castigating the executive, castigating CONAC. It could be the case that there are some really serious people within the government that are trying to fight corruption.
Okay.
For example, the recent passport making of passport. We used to see about the expressway and everything, and the corruption that was involved in the process of passport making, express passport and everything. So it was, you know, a new system was introduced, which is the digital process. You have to apply online, and you know, so that is a positive aspect, which implies that indeed there are some people within the government that can use technology, that are willing to bring in technology to be able to upgrade the system, to digitalize.
Okay, we'll be coming back to you.
And, you know, reduce corruption in a very significant way.
We'll be coming back to you. Professor Nsah.
Thank you, James.
Okay, Professor Nsah. What are we not getting right as far as this fight is concerned? Because President Biya has made it clear from day one that his main goal is to fight against corruption. And he created the National Anti-Corruption Commission on 11th of March 2006. Till then, we've had ups and downs, moving up the chart, coming down.
Thank you once more, Mr. Javis. When you don't need to be told by any person that Cameroon is one of the first 30 countries that are most corrupt in the world. The CPI, which my colleague Mr. Anya just talked about there, though he said it in a reverse direction, because actually it is from bottom. Countries from bottom are the most corrupt, and those at the top, they're the ones that are actually not actually too corrupt. You need to just move down the streets, see the police control points, see the gendarmerie. Just go to Yaoundé. All these institutions I call CONAC, for example, they work in Yaoundé. Go to where they make national ID cards. Go to where they make the passports. Many other, even at the ministries, you will see corruption. And then you're going to ask yourself, is CONAC actually a body that's supposed to fight corruption in this country? I think we see that. And so now, well, at one time one might be tempted to blame CONAC, but to the greater extent one might be thinking about the executive too as well. But I would like to ask a question. What is the job description of CONAC? In this country you find a lot of situations where people are appointed to positions of responsibilities, but they don't know exactly what they have to do. They're the ones that have to define their job descriptions. And so because of the fact that it is difficult to know exactly what CONAC has to do, because for example, we're expecting that they were able to handle cases of corruption, for example, right up to the judiciary and see how these people are punished. But then we see that they are limited. It therefore implies that this might not be one of the job descriptions. What are the job descriptions of CONAC that can now enable us to be able to effectively and efficiently judge them? That's a question which is very, very difficult for me. And so the blame now goes back to the executive, because it seems like there is total lack of control at the helm of this country. Laws are made. We have to do this. These are the political processes. These are the institutional processes. These are the outcomes that are necessary to take this country back to development. But again, they are the same executive that stand against them. And then you find us at the same point. Bribery, nepotism, as you can name them, networking and the like, they still prevail, and they prevail in a totally disorderly manner and then in a manner that is not even hidden. So I want to raise my case at that point, and we'll come back later on.
Yeah, no, I still continue with you. You raise an issue that is a two-way, it's a shared responsibility between CONAC and also the executive, and that there's no clear-cut job description as far as this is concerned. But these members of the National Anti-Corruption Commission are members with high reputation. If they think they don't have the powers, is it not been normal for them to tell Cameroonian or to resign?
It's a position whereby you also have the opportunity to eat something. Let me tell you, where I work, for example, I was appointed. I saw a letter from my senior boss that you are part of the anti-corruption committee of this particular institution. But let me tell you, there's no job description. There's nothing. How can I work? And then at the end now, maybe he will come over and say, no, I appointed you, didn't do anything. How will you evaluate me? What are going to be the criteria? What are going to be the indicators that you will use that to evaluate me to see whether or not I did function very well or not? So the problem is, I am not actually blaming CONAC, but I'm saying the executive bears the blame. Because I've even browsed, I've gone through the net, I've tried to see, maybe it required me to go right to the anti-corruption committee, the CONAC office, to see exactly the job descriptions, to see exactly what they are supposed to do. Because you see, going maybe a way further would mean that you're stepping out of your boundaries. And then you might be blamed for that.
Now, again with you, don't you think that we too are co-authors to this? Because the laws, as Anya stated, it's clear that it is the person giving the bribe and the person receiving. Now, we have situations where most Cameroonians are the ones pushing it. Let's come to the secondary school level. When people go for admission within Douala, this is common in Douala, where you go for admission at the government high and secondary school, they will tell you the number of places is enough, there is not enough space for your child, and you have to pay a certain amount of money for bribe before your child gets admitted. Are these not factors that we too should shun the common man and shame them for being part of these corrupt practices?
The common man has been pushed the world to do that. So we can't blame them in a way.
Don't we have the social responsibility?
Pardon?
Don't we have the social responsibility to uphold the constitution as individuals first before the nation?
Let me tell you, whenever there is anything like corruption, for example, that has an impact on the development of the country, it automatically touches on the well-being of the population. That is the social aspect now. And therefore, people who are unable to pay huge sums of money to send their children to other institutions will be forced now to pay those minimal amount of money to ensure that the children move into those institutions. But then you don't also blame them, because they do not tell them that that is a kind of corruption. They are told that it's school fees instead by the government. And so they're paying school fees. They're not paying.
No, but they don't say school fees now. They just tell them that you have to pay a certain amount of money before your child gets admitted. You still have to pay the fee. Excuse me.
I'm in the system. I had been there. I taught in government school Bonaberi, and that was actually the language used at the time. They say you have to pay the child's school fees, and they give the amount of money. So you are paying the school fees. So me taking the money, for example, I'm collecting the school fee of the child. I'm not collecting anything like bribe.
You seem not to be okay with that.
Yes, I want to differ with Prof. When we talk about corruption, everybody thinks about the government. I think corruption is not only in the government sector. Corruption is something that has to do with, that is being practiced by everybody in Cameroon, be it the private sector, be it the government, or whatever sector. Let me go to education, as Prof has said. Education from the onset is so corrupt, from the nursery to the university. I've been a publisher for around 16 years. I work with primary schools, I work with the secondary schools, and I know what is really going on. These children from day one, they are introduced into corruption. You talk about government high school Bonaberi, that they don't, that they call it school fees. It's not school fees. It's not school fees. I am a living witness. At the end of the year, even if your child succeeds in the government common entrance, you go there, you first of all, some people will take 100,000 francs before you will be sent to go and pay the PTE levy. That is very clear.
It's mostly in all government schools around.
Almost in all government schools in Douala here. And we all know, but we only think that the police the gendarmes.
No, but excuse me, who has to be blamed in this case?
Yes, well, yeah, I was about asking you. Are we not co-authors?
We are the co-authors. We are the people giving these bribes. Because if everybody say, I will not give the money, these people will not collect money from us.
Can I just change?
For example, now, in most cases in Douala here, they will say, c'est comme ça qu'on fait. You give money. Then when you give money, I cannot stay behind. I'm forced to do it. At the end of it now, we blame the head of state. Whereas in our own various small corners, the responsibility, we are very, very corrupt, and I think that corruption has to do with mindset.
Excuse me, please. We are talking about the state.
Yes.
I'm an individual.
Yes.
I'm not the state.
Yes.
The Minister of Secondary Education has the right to tell the people exactly what they have to do. First of all, you call it government common entrance examination.
Very good.
Why is that after the government common entrance examination, the minister allows the school to conduct another entrance examination again? Why can't it just go from that point to select the candidates to go into the school?
That has been my worry problem.
That is exactly where we come back to the point. And where the government has to be blamed. Because that money is not only taken by those individuals, they know what hierarchy needs so that their positions might be maintained. Do you know that if you are appointed...
That has been my worry.
Yes.
If you go to most private schools, they are also very corrupt. And in this case, do you expect CONAC to come in? I'm just asking. Because I know private schools that will just organize recruitment of teachers. And they will ask teachers to bring file study fees of, let's say, 3,000 francs. They will collect the fee knowing very well that they are not going to employ anybody. It's very clear. I know it very well. There are schools that you pay school fees for your child in the nursery. You ask to bring chalk. You are asked to bring ream of papers. They give you the the name of the ream of paper you have to bring, and you give the other materials. At the end of it all, these materials are carried to the lab, to the bookshops, and I sold there. That is corruption. So corruption in Cameroon starts from the base. Is some sort of mentality. We have that mind. That people have that mind that you cannot achieve anything in this country without giving something. So people from the nursery school to start growing with it. Have instances where parents come to school and bribe class teachers for their children to have good position in class. In private schools, that is corruption. Corruption is rich in Cameroon in such a way that if we don't assist CONAC can never work. Even if they give CONAC the authority to jail those who are practicing corruption, CONAC will not be present everywhere at any time.
There is no time for CONAC to be decentralized. If you have pointed out these clear practices.
Let me tell you.
Let me just cue you. Let me cue you. You have pointed out clear practices that are ongoing within our secondary schools in Douala. They are glaring because I went to some of the schools during the admission period. It was clear.
Yes.
Now, if we have this situation, it is not been normal that we have a decentralized CONAC system where we say, okay, we have regional branch in Douala, we have regional branch in Southwest, regional branch in the East, who are charged now with enforcing or ensuring that cases like this are brought.
Even if we have those branches, even if we decentralize it, the problem is that who are we to trust? Because, for example, now, if you have been asked to come and audit me, and I know that I have done something fishy, and I give you tips, you are going to give a good report that everything is okay.
So they corrupt. You are not saying that the members of this commission too are also corrupt people.
We cannot trust them. That is the fact. We cannot trust them.
No. You cannot say this. Now these are high-sounding members appointed by the head of state.
We have had cases where roads have been constructed. People have been sent to come and inspect the roads, and they come and the road is in very bad shape, and they're making a report.
They are not CONAC officers now. We are talking about CONAC officers.
But then the question is, why must you send somebody to go and do the inspection? When you send someone to go and do an inspection, for example, there is a barometer that you give. You say, this is what I did. And then again, let me tell you one thing. As a leader, you don't just have to sit and say, go and do this thing. As they go there, you follow up. You don't just have to sit again and accept everything that comes to your table.
Before CONAC leaves Yaoundé to come to Douala in an office, somebody from that office has called the person in Douala.
That is not working.
CONAC is coming.
Then the government is not doing the job.
Maybe they are yes. We don't know these things.
Bros, excuse me, my brother.
Okay.
Corruption can only be stopped
Okay.
if we change our mentality.
We'll be coming back to you
If we
guys.
want to depend on Konak, we will never change this country.
We'll be coming back to you guys. Good topic, Mr. Javis. This is share writing in Holland, in the Netherlands. Share writing, good topic, Mr. Javis, but not new to the entire country. Taking the same country, talking about the same country that has been more than once world champion, yet corruption is even on the rise in the same country. Mr. Tah Javis, how do you fight corruption in a country where none of its institution has autonomy? Konak itself is corrupt, so how can it enforce the duty it was assigned to do? This is share writing in the Netherlands. This other person says, good afternoon, Mr. Javis. I think Konak is also responsible for corruption because they are not doing their job. This other one, right, it says Bia is responsible. It says Bia is responsible for corruption. Bia is responsible for corruption in Cameroon because the government belongs to him. The government herself created an atmosphere of corruption. For instance, there is no leasing to exploit wood, but wood is circulating like Maggi cube. Government monies are supposed to be paid in the treasury, but not in this case. This is coming from an anonymous sender. Your view on this? Corruption.
We have been talking about corruption here for too long, and then, yeah, corruption in Cameroon is something that will take a long time to go. First of all, because of the nature of the state we have. Cameroon is a neo-patrimonialism system. A neo-patrimonialism system is a system of network, a system where those who belong to the right network are the people who have the real power. That's how Cameroon functions. And in this kind of system, the elites of the nation click on this network and then to swindle the state resources to their own personal benefit. So in this kind of system, it is very difficult to fight corruption. It's very, very complicated. Another thing is that corruption is just human nature. It is in the nature of every human being to be bad. But it takes laws to correct a human being to move in the right path. So it is, in Cameroon, it is a mindset that has stayed for too long. And that if something is not done, it will become a culture. As it is gradually becoming a culture in Cameroon. Like, that's the worst thing that can happen to us, to make corruption to become a culture. Like, people just know that it is normal for you to give bribe or for you to give tips to somebody. These are the kind of things that we're fighting so that the next generation should not suffer this. It is very difficult to fight corruption in Cameroon because of the state. Because in every nation we hold the state accountable. We hold our leader, those who are in charge of authority accountable. They're supposed to set or make good laws that will be able to create an enabling environment for corruption not to thrive. But in Cameroon we see by the contrary. We see our lawmakers making laws that favor only them at the detriment of the general population of the common man. So in this kind of system, it is very difficult to fight corruption. So we can always speak and then just be hopeful that maybe one day, as we are creating awareness each day, maybe somewhere, somehow, some people may be conscious and change. But to looking at the things like the fighting corruption in the past, the government had not really been serious with fighting corruption. Creating Konak, they know that Konak cannot really fight corruption. Konak is just like a toothless bulldog. They can bark, but they cannot bite. They don't have judicial powers. In other countries, when you really mean to fight corruption, you are going to empower the body in charge of fighting corruption with judicial powers, that they can indict somebody and then be able to have powers to send that person to prison. But in Cameroon, if you see, look at the mandate of creating Konak and then other anti-corruption bodies to fight corruption in Cameroon, you see that their powers are limited only at the presidency. That also their workload or their roadmap to work is just to maybe investigate state officials and then give recommendation to the presidency to see if the presidency can indict them. In this kind of scenario is not a serious affair. that's not a serious way to fight corruption. If you compare with like the case of EFCC, that's Economic and Financial Crimes Commission in Nigeria, it is different. Their own case, they have judicial powers. They have the right to indict somebody and be able to send that person directly to court for embezzlement or for corruption. But in Cameroon, we are hoping that maybe some days to come, this kind of thing can happen. But we really hope, and we know that it's difficult for it to happen because our lawmakers cannot really make this kind of law because they themselves will fall victims of this law. If they allowed a CONAC to be that powerful, that can indict them, they will not accept to vote this kind of law in parliament. You say the
state has not been serious in fighting against corruption. But we have seen a lot of ministers sent to Kondegi. Well, first the state. Let me learn. I want to cue you. I want to ask you. President Biya created the Anti-Corruption Commission, 11th of March 2006. Is that not part of the effort by the state to fight against corruption? Two, we've had Operation Sparrowhawk, where members were arrested and sent to Kundengi. Three, we've had instances where members are charged with corruption and they are forced to reimburse the money, like that of Bazia Tanganakuna, and we have seen members who are also on the line of Covid Gate at the entrance of Kundengi, knocking for Kundengi. This is not effort put in place by the state to curb corruption. How do you say they are not serious with all these measures?
No, to me, all of these measures are just playing to the gallery. Because in Cameroon, all these indictments and sending people to Kondonge, we have never heard for once the amount of money that has been recovered from these guys who have been sent to prison. In the case of, you made mention of Ms. Tanganakuna, that was recently released from prison. We were only told that part of his money was paid. We were not even told the amount that was paid and the amount that was remaining. So that all of that is not a serious indication that you are fighting corruption. Exactly. If you want to fight corruption in Cameroon, you have to indict people. You have to make mechanisms to check them not to steal.
We also have their Batros affair. Members have been sent to Kundengi because of their Batros affair. Malafa is behind bars. But effort by the government.
Are we fighting corruption or fighting political opinion?
No, you call it political opinion, but the government says that they are corruption. There are people who have embezzled state funds.
But when you do a deep analysis, you don't really see a correlation between all of this indicting them.
No, but this is from an opinion perspective, not from a legal perspective. What the court says is corruption, embezzlement.
Yeah, but
doubting the outcome of the court.
The court might say that this is embezzlement, but our question, the common man is asking where the money they have embezzled is found.
And then again, that
is the issue. That's why we as common people are forced to reason in the common way.
The court is wrong in sending them to Konenge.
Because we don't know exactly.
Okay, Prof. Let me come. Anye, are you there? Yes, Anye. We've had members here who say that the state itself is not serious in fighting corruption, but is it not fair to say that the state has been doing it also its utmost best to reduce corruption? Because we've had the Abatros affair, we've had the Operation Sparrowhawk, we still have members who are in Kundegi because the court of Cameroon, which is the legitimate body that we should recognize, have actually passed a ruling that members have been found, guilty of embezzlement.
Thank you, Julius. I think we've seen all those the different operations and everything that has happened. But here is one thing that we have to understand. In the end, I mean, some of these things can really be like playing to the gallery, as one Mr. Nick talked about. Because in the end, Cameroon is not a free country. Cameroon doesn't have the virtues of democracy. There is no freedom of speech, even if there is some sort of freedom of speech. I mean, after you speak your mind openly, you're being harassed by the military or the police. There is no freedom of the press. They are being censored every time. There seem to be some sort of freedom of the press. There is none. People are not in a level where they are even free to think, because there is this atmosphere of fear that has been created by the government, and therefore in the end everything is so opaque. There is no transparency and there is no accountability, such that even after all of these operations and everything goes down, in the end, we never know how much is recovered, if anything at all is recovered. it is not clear if it's a political, some sort of political agenda against maybe opposition or someone that seems to be challenging the presidency, you know. So in the end, the whole thing is opaque because the virtues of democracy have not been implemented in the country. So in the end, we go back to the real crux of the matter. Cameroon is not, I think Freedom House, it's an NGO, I think it's based in the US, ran Cameroon as one of the most oppressive countries in the world. Cameroon is, the oppression in Cameroon is comparable to that in Afghanistan.
No, you can, let me cue you in. Let me cue you in. Let me cue you in, Anya. Let me cue you in. You cannot say that, you cannot compare Cameroon with Afghanistan. You made a lot of statements which I want you to clarify. First of all, you said Cameroon, there's no freedom of speech. And you also said the virtue of democracy doesn't exist in Cameroon. You also said that the freedom there's no freedom of the press, that the press is being censored. But I've never seen in my career where someone tells me or calls me from Yaoundé as a journalist to say, don't publish this, don't publish this. And also, people are talking on this panel because they have their freedom. And none of them, the government has actually asked any of them to say, don't say this, say this. We've had members here who have actually blamed the government for not being able to fight against corruption, including yourself. And also the fact of freedom of speech. You cannot totally say these are not existing in Cameroon. Adding to democracy, you cannot also say that there's no iota of democracy in Cameroon, where we have members who are going, where we have voters, people go to, on the polls to vote. We have the National Commission for the ELECAM. We also have the National the Commission in charge of ensuring that they proclaim the results. So, what are you actually saying in essence? Are you saying that these are just things that doesn't exist?
James, they might exist on the surface. I mean, it is clear. People, you get the points that you've raised. They might exist on the surface, but we know. Look at, for example, Mr. Abdul Karim. He used to go on air and speak openly, but now he's in. Why is he in prison? Why is he locked up? What about the case of Mimime, for the journalist of Equinox? After speaking, why was she locked up? So this there are people who are in prison right now for speaking up. For speaking. So it might be the case that there are some cases where, you know, government, you know, says so. There are some specific topics that should not be talked about. There are some specific words that should not.
Okay, now I queue with you on that, but now which means that you have cleared the point, because the statement you used was actually a sweeping statement, because I wanted us to have this clear understanding that press are not constantly being censored as people say, because we've had, nobody tells me what to do. When I come for my program, nobody sent me an editorial policy. I think that I must have the social corporate responsibility as a journalist to understand that there is the rule of law. So when we say people are being censored, I think it's a sweeping statement. Now I put it to you, maybe you have this to answer to queuing. You say most of those persecuted are political issues. Are you saying that those persecuted for corruption have no iota of embezzlement? They are sent and they have not embezzled?
No, Javis, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there has to be transparency. At the moment, there is no transparency, and everything is opaque. So there have to be independent civil society organizations that have to be able to look at these things. Journalists have to have because at the moment, Javis, even though there are some of the journalists who are even able to talk about some of these things are just courageous journalists and courageous panelists.
Okay, it's like we have issue with your connection. We'll be coming back to you. To stop corruption, the law enforcement and regulatory institutions must take actions at the right time and the right way. Most often, the reports presented by CONAC are kept in the lockers and removed only when the individual involved challenges the regime in place. Ramsey from Bamenda, and this other one right, he says, happy Sunday to you and to you all in the studio in Cameroon. If you can't beat them, join them. The easiest way to get your sin forgiven, join CPDM. To protect your business from exorbitant taxes to kick you out of business, join CPDM. Your business is safe. CONAC an instrument of the government to punish lost sheep whose hands are dirty. And this is coming from an anonymous sender. This one right, it says, Good day, my media crew. The highest problem in Cameroon are CONAC members. Can you imagine a CONAC caught me when I was settling control for 1,000 francs in Bafoussam and asked me to give him the sum of 10,000 francs because I was involved in corruption. This is coming from Valentine from Bafoussam. Maître Ninkoff writes, says Master Javis, extending regional branches will only help expand more corruption tentacles. The regime has sustained its grip in power because of corruption, and corruption will be solved once the regime is replaced. Writing from Maître Ninkoff. This other right, he says, happy Sunday to you. This is a very good program. I think Cameroonian has a responsibility first to fight against corruption in their end. Let me come to you. You wanted to react before I go to Prof? Okay, Prof. You are firm to say that you know, the fight against corruption has been politicized, but I don't see it politicized because the courts of Cameroon, the different courts that these people were presented, actually brought a ruling that these people have been found guilty of embezzlement. Are you by chance saying that this court did not give a fair judgment and that these people are free and void of corruption? At the same time, we should fight corruption. How then should we fight it? If we are saying that those charged with corruption are political people, should we let them go?
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer because...
That's why you are Prof.
Yes. Well, when they are handed over to the judges for maybe a crime that they've committed, maybe a crime of corruption, for example, maybe because they have surely identified something that is wrong with these authorities. But then, at one time too as well, I would always like to tell you, and I want to believe in my spirit, in my thinking, that this is simply a kind of settling of political games. Because you can find somebody, correct my sense, maybe like somebody just said now, an information now, a report that X and Y, maybe these guys are heavily corrupted because of one thing or another. The government will keep that to themselves until when they see the other person is a threat to the government. That's when now they bring up the idea and say this man is corrupt, this man is like that. So you see, we have in Cameroon a kind of a very strong window dressing policies and institutions that have been created to fight corruption, which in fact are not actually doing what Cameroonians actually expect.
When you say
let me tell you one thing.
When you say window dressing,
yes,
what do you mean by window dressing?
They are only doing.
Are you questioning the authenticity of CONAC and calling CONAC a window dressing?
What have they been doing? Take, for example, the case, which we talk about the police case, for example, the gendarmerie. Move from here to Compina, for example, on weekends, and you find a group of people that they call themselves gendarmes, that they are controlling speed breaks, about everything like that on the way. These guys, when they collect this money, where they send this money to? Fake receipts they establish. They don't even give receipts. Do you pay 25,000 francs? Where does the money go to? Somebody in Yaoundé is sending this guy to come here and collect money, illegal money. Government would have used a different alternative to collect this money to develop the country. But the rest are poor. Everything is poor about this country. Where's the money going to? Is government not aware of the fact that these guys are on the way everywhere, collecting money, illegal collection of money from people? Is that a job? To stand the way, blow whistle, is that a job? What is that contributing to the development of this country? That they are doing this thing day in, day out. Let's start from these policemen. We take them off the street, and then now we set up an independent body that will be in charge of looking into corruption, to corrupt practices in this country. These people will identify this, they will come out with their judgments, and then they will tell the community, this is what is happening. It should not be the government. If you create an institution and then you are the one that is pioneering them, doing everything for them, you're sponsoring them, then that kind of institution can never be effective. We need an independent corruption unit in this country that can handle all of these cases.
Prof, let me do a queue in. You have raised some key issues and I want us to tackle it head on. Yes. First, you say we should take policemen off the
and the gendarmerie
of the major roads.
Yes.
Yeah. Who then is charged with our security? Because are these not same people who are supposed to protect us on the street? And secondly, you say independent body.
Yes.
And at the same time, you say the government has failed. Is it not the same government that is going to? Is it not the same government that is going to appoint this same independent body? How will you trust now this independent body if it's the same government that will appoint them?
Let me tell you, some years ago, I want to quote the situation of Bamida, for example. because I grew up in Bamenda, there was what they call mobile police. These guys were always on the motion. You hardly find them standing here or there stopping vehicles. And then these guys, most of the time they were in civilian attire, and they were to identify cases that were dangerous, and they would arrest them. At that time, there was total peace in the whole institution, in the whole region. Let me tell you one thing, like what I made a comment maybe a few hours ago concerning this issue of policemen. You talk about security. Which kind of security are you giving to the Cameroonian people?
Protecting us from highway bank robbers.
No, what they are doing there is they are protecting their own interests, because what they are doing there is simply collecting money for their pockets. Let me tell you, in my quarter in Bikoko, 2 cases, 2 ladies have been killed. But just Bobono, that's the police control point. Just down around Shiloh, Church of Nations, there are people there.
There's
and then just, and then again, a very strong, powerful team again on the way to the southwest region there. Those people, those ladies were picked up in the quarter. Just a stone throw from them. When you report to them, they think that that's a complete nonsense. It doesn't help in any way. Are they there to protect the people, to protect their own individual souls?
But we have had cases where along the Douala Boya Highway, where dangerous weapons have been confiscated by police along the way, criminals apprehended along the way.
Well, they didn't settle. That's clearly the case. They didn't settle. They didn't settle. That is it. They didn't settle.
Yeah, let me say something.
Yeah.
Sometimes most Cameroonians, they confuse me, because when people are top officials in government are corrupt and they are picked up and they are sent to Kondenge, we say no, it is because of political reasons. If these people were not picked up and sent to Kondenge, we say no, the government is very corrupt. People have chopped the government money and government is not doing anything. There is one thing, Prof. When you talk about corruption, we are only dangling around policemen and gendarmes. You are a university lecturer. Are you aware that many teachers give what we call sexual marks to female
Do you have
students?
evidence?
I want to reverse.
Some
Do you have evidence?
Some.
Yes, you cannot
And that's one of our statements.
Yes.
Because I have never seen that.
It's some.
Yes.
It's some.
Yes.
It's some. It is glaring. I went to university and I know it.
Maybe that was at their time. I did not know anything about that.
You
I don't
cannot
know
accept
anything
because
about
you
that.
are field.
No,
You
let me
cannot
tell you,
accept- it's
I'm a
because
member
it's
of the anti-corruption committee.
Very good. They will not come. They will not come.
So
and they will
what
not-
I'm telling you is this: you have evidence, for example, then we'll let you have that.
we have had reports from the university that
from the rectors,
from university that students are given what they call sexual transmitted marks.
who gave this kind of
Very
report?
good.
Those are fake
Yes.
reports.
No problem. Let him learn. Let him learn.
It is, yes. So the policemen, we are not saying that they are not corrupt. All the sectors in Cameroon, as I have said, everybody is corrupt. I traveled one day in the vehicle. Let me give you an example. We went to a checkpoint. At that checkpoint, the driver of the vehicle did not have his complete documents. The police officer insisted that he was not going to take money, that he was taking that car to the police station. Everybody in the vehicle started shouting, "This policeman is a very bad man. They give him money, deny for take up." So in that case, many of us, we are the people forcing.
We're co-authors.
Very good, because I travel every week to Bamenda. When you're in the car, somebody that does not have his identity card, yes, he would already know that he has.
Nobody will settle.
Yes, settle. At the checkpoints, the motorbike will ask, who does not have an identity card? To say, I'm the one, and this. Then they will give money. Then he will run now and go and give to the policeman and pass. Has the policeman asked for money? No. I saw something extraordinary the other day when I was traveling to Bamenda. One police guy entered the car, checked. The one woman was sitting with that an ID card, and the guy gave advice. Please, madam, when you reach where you are going, make this ID card. It is very essential, because if you die on the road now, we will not know who was right. I was very impressed.
Exactly.
I even forgot to take the
There are
guy's
exceptions
number.
like
Those
that.
are exceptions.
That is exactly what we want in this
Those
country.
are the type of Cameroonians that
Exactly.
we need.
That is it.
If we sit and we say that Konak will come from Yaoundé and come and station
Do we
in
even
all
need
the
Konak?
offices in Cameroon, we are making an error. The fight against corruption should be everybody's fight. Don't sit and wait for Konak. We should fight in all our areas where we have been given posts of responsibilities. Because in each and every institution in Cameroon, people believe that you cannot be offered a service without tips. without giving tips.
And that is true.
It is true. It is both in the private and in the government. So corruption is something that if we don't change our mindset, even if they bring a president from heaven, even if we create Konak in every village in Cameroon, we will not succeed in fighting corruption.
So how do we change his mindset?
So, but how have other countries succeeded?
Succeeded, exactly. Why?
We cannot say that corruption. There has to be somebody at the head giving the directives
that is why
on how corruption should be fought. I've said that. Not that everybody should be fighting corruption.
If you cannot fight it, then Konak cannot fight alone.
Bros,
if you continue to force people to receive bribe, how do you? There are places that you go that Konak does not go there. Konak do not know that those people exist. So you can force the people to take bribe. At the end,
I'm saying that it is a system. It is a whole system that's a problem.
That is the language that everybody uses. Use. It is the system, and this is of the system. And this is
wait. Who is the system?
Very good.
The system is the government in place.
And who is the government?
And who is the government?
The government is the president and his ministers.
The executive. We talk about the executive.
The government is not us.
The executive.
The government is not everybody. The executive. That's the government.
Excuse me.
We are part of the government.
We are not part of the government.
We must fight in our own individual ways.
That is what we are doing now.
Let the government succeed in whatever thing it is doing.
Let me tell you, there's nothing wrong with this government copying what is right with other countries.
Yes.
If we take, for example, what Mr. Nick just said there, government decides today and say, "Bong, I mean the executive, we must copy what is happening in those countries where corruption is at the minimum."
Yes.
And stop copying wrong things or copying what the Gabon is doing in other countries. Then we're going to succeed. And then again, education is very, very important too as well. We don't need a policeman to even impound the vehicle because of the fact that the car doesn't have the documents. We're living in a digitalized world whereby such information has to be communicated to authorities that the vehicle is immediately identified and then they pay the fine necessary. We don't have to stop a vehicle with passenger inside and say, "No, you must come and pay." You are encouraging the guy to pay money which is illegal and you collect it and it's not going to the state treasury.
Okay, let's take on the messages you got. Accept one regards from Echeng Roland writing from Bambili. I wish to find out if Konak has a toll-free number with which Cameroonians can call to report cases of corruption. Konak need information and this information can only be provided by me and you. The institution is not all-knowing. Thank you. And the free toll number for Konak is 1517. The hotline for Konak is 1517. So if you have a case or maybe you have been harassed and you have evidence, so you can call the free toll number 1517, which is the hotline of Konak, and Konak can definitely get to you. Please, media, the topography of the country needs God's attention because the topography of those who are in power of a complete different planet or God should change this country space or planet. Very uncertain country. I am Anastasia Andrew writing. That's your own opinion. This one reads, good afternoon to you and the team on panel, Javis. Your program are always good. Okay, to be very honest with you, Javis, Konak can't fight corruption because some people in this country are bigger than Konak. Molingo Oscar writing from Bovingo. This other read, it says, Mr. Javis, sincerely, I applaud you and some of your guests for speaking up against some issues of the society, but freedom of expression in the Cameroons comes always with a threat. No one comes always with a threat. One is most likely to be arrested to their way out in the studio after a program like yours. And of course, nobody has been arrested in my program. Nobody has been arrested. People are always free to speak their mind as long as it is in conformity with the laws of Cameroon, and of course you know what it is. You need not to be reminded. Konak does not have the full power. That is why they cannot fight corruption. This is coming from an anonymous sender. This one reads, Cameroon is a good country, but which God should change the topography. This is coming from Andrew. This one says, yes, good morning to you on board. Konak itself is corrupt. So to fight corruption in this country, we have to first of all has to be suspended. It has to be suspended. This is Edwin from Bamenda. Then Edwin, which one to fight against corruption? Greetings all the way from Limbe. Thank you for bringing up the issue. Even though it is like throwing water on the duck's back, both Konak and the executive are trying their best, but their best is not good enough. All the sectors in this country are very corrupt. The worst is the issue of ID cards, corrupt schools. Corruption has become the third language in the country. The solution for each individual is to cultivate honesty in his or her department of work. It is coming from an anonymous sender. Good afternoon, Javis. Talking about corruption in Cameroon is like preaching in the desert. The laws that we have in our penal code are the ones encouraging corruption. Tafu Vitalis in Yaoundé. Nick, we say there's corruption in Cameroon. Government should emulate what other countries are doing, and the government said, okay, in 2006, President Biya said, let me emulate, and created the National Anti-Corruption Commission. And also, the President Biya saw that, okay, there have been series of operations carried out by other countries like Nigeria, that, okay, let it be Operation Sparrowhawk, that those who have been found guilty, the government did that. Members were sent to prison, and we now are saying that, no, those who were sent to prison are political issues, and instead the government, what should the government now do, Nick? If you were in President Biya's position, how will you address this corruption?
The issue is to fight corruption in every nation. It is just something that's scientific. A scientific aspect is something that is applicable everywhere. You can apply it everywhere. The first is political will. When there's political will, the rest of the things follow or fall under it. If you want to fight corruption, the leader, you as a leader, if you don't steal, your subordinates don't steal, you have reduced corruption by 70%. So that's the first issue in Cameroon. Article 66 of the Constitution of Cameroon says that before you are elected or you take a public office, you're supposed to declare your assets. But we have never seen the president of this country declaring his assets. We have never seen his ministers declaring their assets. So you start fighting corruption from this level. There has to be political will. And the second thing is, when there's political will, you are going to bring a favorable form of state. The form of state of Cameroon is hyper-centralized. You cannot fight corruption in a hyper-centralized system. It can never work. You have to decentralize the nation or the state. And you have to do that with a positive mindset. Once you refuse to do this, it will be very difficult for you to sit in Yaoundé and check what is happening on ground. And why is it difficult? It is difficult because there's not enabling technology to fight this. You can maybe have a hyper-centralized system in a highly digitalized system. You can be able to fight corruption in this kind of system. But in our own case, it is not. We are not yet at that level. That's another method of fighting corruption. Digitalization. You digitalize all sectors of the state, all sectors of the government. You can't be able to control everything from every point. If you don't do this, it will be very difficult for you to fight corruption. This is what other countries are doing. This is what Rwanda is doing, and they are succeeding. This is what Kenya, Tanzania, the rest most of the East African countries are doing, and they are succeeding. And we sit here in Central Africa and say that, and we say you should not blame the government. The government has tried to create anti-corruption commission. And remember, when the issue of corruption was raised in Cameroon, the president of Cameroon said there was no proof. He said, who saw the proof? Yeah, that was
before he created Konak.
Yeah, people were stealing and...
No, we are talking about post-Konak.
Yeah, if you want to even study the history of creating Konak, it was just maybe conditions imposed on them by the IMF. Because the IMF and the World Bank, they were giving loans to Cameroon. And they were not seeing what this money was.
Where we have seen that Cameroon was imposed to create Konak.
No, I'm just telling you that.
That's your thought.
Yeah, Cameroon was constrained to create Konak.
No, your thought.
It's not my thought.
They were constrained.
You have evidence. You have evidence.
They were constrained to create Konak.
You have evidence to prove that Cameroon was constrained.
Yeah, there are empirical evidence to that.
But not scientific evidence.
There are empirical evidence to anyway, I'm saying that they were constrained. The reason why the IMF and the World Bank imposed this because they were giving loans to Cameroon and they were not seeing.
Let me do a follow-up.
Yeah, the reason the projects earmarked for these loans were not being realized.
Let me do a follow-up. Yeah. You said fighting corruption is a scientific process, and that first it takes a political will. Yeah. And you quoted that if the leader doesn't steal.
Yes, and his subordinate does not steal.
No, you said the leader doesn't steal.
Yes.
His subordinate will not steal.
Yes.
And so it is 70%. Are you by chance saying that the fact that we have corruption in Cameroon is because the president is stealing?
Not the president stealing directly.
No.
Yes.
Are you by chance saying that the president is stealing?
No, but when I talk about the
No, because let him land. Let him answer the question. I'll come to you, Prof. Because you quoted and I quote you that
Yes.
fighting corruption in Cameroon is a political will.
Yes, a
And that
political
if
will.
you, the leader, don't steal, and the leader of Cameroon is President Biya, your subordinate will not steal. To that effect, is it fair to say that you are accusing the president of stealing?
I'm not
of corruption in Cameroon.
Wait, let me come in. I'm saying that if the president of the country, according to Article 66, has not declared his asset, so you cannot really evaluate whether the president has been stealing or not, because he has not declared his asset. He has not, for all the mandate he has been there, he has never declared his asset to say this is what I had. The last mandate he is in now, he did not declare his asset. So you cannot be able to evaluate the president still in office whether he has been stealing or not.
So if I go by their statement,
implicitly, you can see that his subordinate have been stealing, and if he has been maintaining them in that place, it means that he's in support of what
so
they are doing.
Wait. If you are going by implicitly subordinate have been stealing,
Yes.
and going back to your initial stated statement that if the leader doesn't steal, therefore you are charging the president of stealing.
Indirectly, if you are supporting, okay, if your child in the house is stealing and you don't denounce the child, it means that you are a bad father.
If the
bad father.
are not denouncing it, then you are making an error, because
Even 2013,
If the president denounce and still maintain you, what sense does it make?
If you look at the number of ex-ministers that are in Kondenge, that is a clear proof,
a textbook example.
President Paul Biya has been trying.
We are not refusing, but our problem is
confident into them. They have failed.
Okay,
If not, we will still have all these ministers that are in Kondenge. They will still be lurching outside.
Our problem
as a
is
part of the nation. He has sent all of them to Kondenge.
Yeah, land brief so I get to Prof and Anye.
He has been fighting corruption.
He has learned it anyway.
Yeah, we are not saying that he has not been putting an effort to fight corruption, but we are not seeing any grand positive result in his approach of fighting corruption, and we are saying that it can be done alternatively. The method he's using to fight corruption is not the best, and it can be done alternatively. Yeah. The first thing, he has to declare his asset. If he declares his asset, his ministers will be forced to declare his asset, because that's how the country functions. It's like it's a presidential system where the orders of or the action of every minister comes from the president. If the president does something or doesn't do something, the ministers will follow.
Very briefly.
Yeah.
So if the president declare his asset,
yes,
the ministers declare. No, let me land.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting the question. If the president declared asset,
yes,
the ministers declare their asset,
yes,
and CONAC stands in the middle, will that solve the current context of corruption?
And CONAC being empowered, CONAC needs to be empowered to have judicial powers. If not, they are just two-leg bulldog. If they are just a body that suggests. So they suggest to the presidency.
Okay.
If asset are declared, you will not encourage somebody to take corruption, take that from you.
You start from there. That's where you start fighting. The main issue of Cameroon is institutional.
Okay, we'll be coming back to you.
It's institutional corruption, not the other petty corruption that we are talking about.
Think of. Let me come this. Think of something more different, more better still has to be done. For it is very impossible as both a corrupted and a corrupt who both see nothing wrong in bribery and corruption, as it is baptismal name in just in theory and can't or won't ever work, but a good business to the actors. Mundi Joseph from Boya, bravo to you all, this beautiful program, and especially to Kimbang Renier, my junior. This is coming from someone in Boya. This one right. Good afternoon, Mr. Javis, and to your panelists. Corruption can be solved only when this present regime leave power. All talking is throwing water on the duck's back. Alfred writing from I don't know. It's not indicated. It did not indicate where he's writing from. This one says, "Good afternoon, Mr. Javis. The entire crew on board the government have the responsibility to fight corruption, not the common man. If man with glasses said it is a responsibility of every Cameroonian to fight corruption, then he should also be there. He should also be their responsible. He should also be responsible." It should also be their responsibility to make the laws and the state. Mr. Javis, the president, the ministers in Kondogi are there for political reasons. I had to censor your word because no, we cannot use some kind of words to those who are watching us, and we must also respect their opinion. Nice program. Happy Sunday to you all, to your panelists. The issue of corruption is solely the handwork of the government. What is wrong in the government going digital? For one reason only, they want to keep corruption up going and stay in power for long as they want to be there. That is coming also from an anonymous sender. Prof, if you are President Biya today, how will you solve this issue of corruption?
I will make sure that that's one thing is participatory democracy. It's very, very important. That's in such a way that everybody is involved in the fight against corruption, even the common man of the state. And then again, I will make sure that a very strong legal system or judicial system which is independent, that will be able to handle these cases and punish the people accordingly. And then again, too, I will make sure that there's actually what they call the rule of the law. I will make sure that there's moral education taught in all the institutions in this country. You know that in this country, for example, when you go to higher institutions, for example, like the universities, I talk about religious studies, it is like a taboo. They don't just want to think about that. And these are some of the things that can actually reduce corruption, because somebody knowing that this verse of the Bible or this verse of the Quran says you must not do this, you must not do that, will have to re-examine himself for carrying out an activity. But now we find ourselves in a country whereby such very, very important parameters are being eliminated. So that is what I think I will do.
Okay, Prof.
Yes, just some of them.
Prof, let me do a follow-up. You say that you institute morals.
Yeah, moral
education in our university. But
yes,
we have civics and ethics.
No, civics and ethics, they are just, we look at civics and ethics, you look at things that favor the government. We are talking about things that have to do with the creator.
So Prof.
In particular, I'm talking about religious studies.
Civics and ethics that also give the responsibility of a citizen, a good citizen.
Yes.
Because I did civics and ethics
of course, all of
university,
us.
where there are duties of me as a responsible citizen, what I'm supposed to do. It did not also give him morals. And you also talked about the issue of religion. Let's look at Nigeria, which is the bedrock of religion in Africa, but still rank the most corrupt.
Yes.
Even in churches, our churches are the most corrupt. We have not talked about the corruption in churches, but we have just talked about the schools. And if you go to churches, confessional schools run by some of these churches, highly corrupt. Is it that the special anointing will come from their own institution?
No, excuse me. That's a very good question to ask. We are not saying that there's an institution which is actually 100% free of corruption. Even in those countries that they rank first in the whole world, there is some degree of corruption. So there is no denying that maybe when you go to even some of the churches, you have some ingredients of corruption. What we are simply saying here is that if we can implement the teaching of religious studies in our schools, this high rate of corruption is going to reduce significantly. Let me tell you, start teaching maybe the Quran and then applying it, not just teaching, but teaching and applying it. Start teaching the Holy Bible, and then you start applying now the concept of the Holy Bible in all our institutions, and then you will see what's going to happen. Just take 1 year and give the parameters necessary to judge a country. What it is what they call the corruption participation index. You will see that Cameroon is going to be reduced significantly. But you keep teaching what they call civics, it's just to pass an exam. And then again, you teach what is not even applicable at times. I think you see that.
Yeah, when you speak like that, it's as if practicing corruption is like doing something that you don't know. As if you are drunk before practicing corruption. As I said here, everything has to do with mindset. Corruption is willful dishonesty.
Bros, what you're saying is true.
Yes.
But then if you have the fear of God,
okay,
if you have the fear of God, you will not do that.
Prof. There are people that are having very big posts in churches, even reverend fathers, even pastors, even evangelists, and they are still very corrupt. We have
How are they corrupt?
We have had instances where the other day I was reading where an evangelist pastor impregnated 20 of his church
Is that
members.
corruption?
That's corruption.
How is it corruption? How do you define corruption then?
So he corrupted them and slept with them.
How did it
That's corruption.
It was a willful thing. Do you think that
Corruption of the body.
How
Prof.
If you told me that
Yes.
there was a kind of rape case resulting to pregnancy,
Prof.
I would accept it.
Prof.
This is corruption, I would not accept it.
Because
the lady willfully
he's
accepted
coming.
You willfully give something to somebody to do a favor.
Not the wife.
So are we not saying that that's not corruption?
Prof.
Corruption of the body.
That case when people have been forcing people to take life.
Prof, he's coming under the pretext because you raise the issue of religion.
Yes.
And if you raise the issue of religion, which means as a man of God, your religion says you should not sleep with a woman you're not married to.
Exactly.
So you sleeping with a woman you're not married to, you're robbing your religion,
Yes.
which is corruption to your religion, which is the
Exactly.
body of Christ.
Perfectly
Now
correct.
let me come to you on this. He raised an issue that he was in a car. They were going and the driver did not have all his documents. And the police apprehended and the police refused to collect money. And the
Exceptional
entire
cases.
crowd in the vehicle, they were chanting, this policeman is a very bad man. Collect your money and let's go, you're a very bad man. What do we do in this case?
Now you
Are we
confuse
not-
Cameroon.
are we- and there's a statement that you get in most circumstances.
Yes.
It's an
Are we not
endemic
co-authors to this?
consequence of
Don't
corruption.
we have the responsibilities? Don't universities have the responsibilities to hold seminars, go down to the field and start educating the people that first they have a responsibility as citizens before looking up to executive?
What you are talking about is actually what we do. We do that. Let me tell you, we do that and we do that very well. Because even in the University of the World, for example, our rector, in all the different faculties, different schools, there are anti-corruption units there. And when those of us who are part of that committee, we make sure that we educate our children on the ills of those kind of things. So now, we're going to the case of religion, for example. The Bible has also made it very clear and clear that not all those who say, Lord, 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 shall ever enter the kingdom of God. So you can find people, they pretend that they're servants of God, but they're not servants of God. True servants of God would never, ever do that.
Okay.
Of course,
And
those people
even
will always
those
be
that
there.
you have, the Muslim leaders, the real ones, they will never, ever do that because they fear God. If you fear God, and then you teach people to fear God and fear God, then they will never do such a thing.
Fighting corruption is like squeezing water out of a rock because CONAC is being put in place by the government in power to prolong her continuous stay in power. And more to that, CONAC is on paper and not in practice. And this is coming from an anonymous sender. I don't know if Anya is there with us. Anya, we are almost out of time. Your last word. I don't know, Anya, can you get me? If we can get you from your audio, I think it will be better. We cannot get Anya. We are almost out of time because they're supposed to end at 1:30. Maybe I start with you. What advice will you give to the president? He's watching you and his team and CONAC in terms of fighting corruption, because the topic was who has failed Cameroonians.
The only thing we can tell the president is that he should accelerate the process of decentralization. If they truly want that Cameroon should be decentralized, it should be a truly decentralized system where power is given at the local levels. This is where, at the local level, it will be easier to fight corruption than fighting it from using a top-bottom approach to fight corruption, as they are doing now. And another thing is that it will be good to also empower CONAC to have judicial powers that they can prosecute somebody who is found guilty of corruption, and then CONAC should investigate people, maybe ministers yearly. Ministers should not, before they defend their budget of next year, they should give account of the budget of this year that they were entrusted with. They should not wait for a minister to leave office before they start investigating you and say this year
We are really out of time.
you stole money and the rest. So these are the kind of common things the president can do. It doesn't need so much to be done to fight corruption.
And unfortunately, we have not been able to have you for the last part of the debate. We are really out of time. We have just 2 minutes to go. I want to get your last word before we go. I don't know if you can get us, Prof.
Yes, I think that my strong advice to the government is to make sure that we put in place a very strong independent judicial system that can handle cases of corruption in our country.
Hello.
And then again,
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can get you.
I think too that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, last word before we go. We're out of time. We are 1 minute out of time. Unfortunately, so we could not get you during the last phase of the debate.
Oh, you obstructed me.
Yeah. So, okay.
Yes. Yeah, last word before we go.
It's taking too much time.
She's not going. Okay, now, after that, I will talk about the rule of law too as well. It's also very, very important. The need for participation, making sure that all Cameroonians are involved in the fight against corruption. And then again, the need to protect the whistleblowers in case we have a situation of that nature too as well. Of course, accountability and moral education cannot be left out. Those are key parameters. Thank you very much, Mr. Javis.
Before we go,
I would advise all Cameroonians to help President Paul Biya to fight corruption, because on his own he cannot do it. Corruption is a two-way traffic, and it's not only practiced by government officials, but it's a thing that is practiced by both the private and the public sector. So my advice is that everybody should put a hand in glove so that we can fight this evil that is called corruption.
And yeah, before we go, your last word, if you are still there.
There's participation.
Unfortunately, we cannot get you. Thank you all to those who took our time to watch our program. To those of you who sent in your messages, we want to tell you that this program comes up every Sunday at exactly 12 to 1:30 p.m. 12 to 1:30 p.m. In case you want to be a panelist, you want to participate on our debate, you can contact me on the numbers that you see on your screen, which is 676-431-384. 676-431-384. I will include you into our WhatsApp group of House of Commons, where the topics are always being posted there. If in case it is of your interest, you will indicate and participate. Instead of you saying this person should have said this, don't bring this kind of person, bring this kind of person, come and make your voices heard and speak your opinion to educate Cameroonians in terms of respecting the rules and regulations of the nation and moving the nation forward in promoting good values and democracy. And in case you want to follow us, our YouTube channel is BT Media Group. Our YouTube channel is BT Media Group. Our Twitter handle is My Media Prime. Our Facebook page, My Media Prime or BT Media Group. My Media Prime, you can have us live, and in case you want a rebroadcast of the program or you want to watch key excerpt, you go to BT Media Group on Facebook page. I'll leave you with this: no matter the matter, what matters is your matter, and what should matter for you is that together we can fight corruption. Together we can fight corruption. My name is Tah Mai Javis from Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. Fengudong Bange. Bye bye.